Welcome back to in-person events, ladies and ladies. My name is Bethany Ruhe. I am Director of Communications and Programming for Gridmates, which is a Z Prime company, and I am absolutely honored to be moderating this panel, Creating Your Space, Female Entrepreneurs and Energy. I'm going to introduce you to my esteemed panelists in just a few minutes. So actually, I'll let them introduce themselves. But in the meantime, I want to throw a couple numbers your way just to chew on while we're having this conversation. According to the International Energy Agency and anyone with eyeballs, the energy sector remains one of the least gender diverse in the world. Let's see, women make up only 13.9% of senior management positions in energy. Women are listed on less than 11% of energy patents filed in the energy sector. Despite making up 48% of the global workforce, women make up a paltry 22% of the energy sector. Simply put, there are not enough women in energy. There aren't enough of our ideas, our passion, our leadership, our voices. Study after study after study consistently shows better results when women have a seat at the table. These women with me today didn't just take a seat at the table, they built the damn thing. So I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves. I will pass it first to my esteemed colleague and friend, Liz Maberry.
Hi. Okay, it's working. It's been a while since we've done this. It feels weird to be back in front of real people. It's fun. I'm Liz Maberry. I am currently a founder and EVP for a competitive retail electricity provider here in Texas. It's aptly called Energy Texas. We are new in the market, but not new to the space. We were founded in May of last year and started acquiring customers in November of last year. My founding team and I had previously formed an REP in 2008 called Bounce Energy that we sold to Direct Energy, where I got to work inside of sort of a startup inside of the giant engine that is DE. This is where I met Bethany and got to do a lot of fun projects with her. But super excited to be back in the retail space and excited to be with y'all today.
Hi everyone, my name is Amy Atchley. I am the senior lead for the EV Equity Program at Austin Energy. I've been in the energy industry for about 5.5 years now. I have no technology background. I have no energy background. I actually come from social services. I was at Meals on Wheels of Central Texas as part of their senior management team for about 12 years. Before that, I was in New York at VH1 Save the Music Foundation, working to restore music education programs for youth at risk. So I found my way into energy along the way. I'm able to work on a program where I am addressing energy poverty. I'm working on program design specifically to reach our underserved community members. This includes deployment of infrastructure, and it also is all about community building. So I'm happy to be here with you today. And again, it's been a while, so we're all just kind of figuring this out. Do we hug? Do we fist bump? So anyway, we might be getting a combination of that from me. But I'm glad to see you're here and healthy, so welcome.
Sadie.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sadie Bronk. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Energy Bees. We are turning 5 years old this year, which is really exciting. June 1st, that's a pretty big deal in small business. We are an energy efficiency services firm. We mostly work with DEI programs, implementing them for utility companies. And we are the proud founding sponsors of a nonprofit 501c3 called Bee Project, Best Earth Ever Project. And we work with high school students. Our mission is to train the next generation's green workforce while creating equitable pathways to green jobs.
I started working with my co-founder of this business and several others. We worked together at Outback Steakhouse on 183 in Duval. He was a busboy and I was a hostess, and we met there and became friends. We became friends then with our third business partner, and then all went to school together. So we went to UT Austin. I got a degree in MIS because everyone said that was the best one, and have never written a line of code in my life. But used that to move to Houston, and my first job was working for a startup And when I say startup, I mean like a legit startup. Myself, one other person, and my co-founder, we worked in a closet where our files were. There were no windows, so it's like Vegas. You never know what time it is. We had breakfast, lunch, and dinner catered 6 days a week. On Sundays, it was just breakfast and lunch. And we worked our tails off. What we were building and built was a platform that was almost like an Expedia, but for home services. So at the time, your landline telephone, your newspaper delivery, your dial-up internet. And eventually, when power deregulated and gas deregulated in Georgia, electricity and gas. And so for a lot of the companies that we worked with, Reliant, TXU, Green Mountain, JAXA, the very first deregulated entities, we were their first foray into digital. And so we got really, really deep under the hood and learned a lot about how consumers shop for energy and how that evolved over time, particularly digital customers in the retail space. And so eventually we decided to, being foolish and young without children, jump out of that company and form our own, because surely if we could sell energy, the rest would just like work itself out. So here we are.
From a closet to a startup. Sorry.
There you go.
Sadie, how about with you? I know that you are also like an entrepreneurial energy whiz. So when did you start off wanting to do something in energy, or did you?
No. I totally fell into it myself. I have a communications degree from Washington State University. Go Cougs, part of the Pac-12. I'm from Seattle, Washington originally. And I put myself through college. I was the first female in my family to go to college, let alone graduate college, so that was pretty cool. And I had no idea. I just knew I liked to talk a lot. I really liked watching TV, so I thought communications would be a great degree. And on the summers and holidays, I would get a temp work through a temp service, and I got hired on at Puget Sound Energy when I was 18 years old doing timesheets for line people, I like to call them, linemen. And I learned about unions and line work and the energy. And I graduated in 3.5 years in 2001. Hello, I'm going to date myself. It's cool. But I did graduate early. Let's remember that. And I needed to pay off all the loans that I had too. So I went back to Puget Sound Energy. I got a job there, and I just started working my way up the ranks.
Or we've started off in a closet. We've started off as a temp job. Amy, I know that you also, I mean, you mentioned it briefly in your intro, you also came into energy not through the most direct route. So sort of what led you into the sector as you have your position right now?
Yeah, thank you. I always say that, I didn't go to energy. Energy came to me. And, we never know where the journey is going to take us, but there's some foundational elements that stay true and have stayed true in my career. I had been in the nonprofit sector for nearly 15 years or more, and I really was ready to do something different. I had no idea what that was going to be. I had known the manager who was hiring for this unique position at Austin Energy, and he thought I might be an interesting candidate. It was really grant funded originally by the 11th Hour Project, which is part of the Schmidt Family Foundation. Their goals are around social and environmental justice. And by the way, I work at Austin Energy on the emerging technologies team, the electric vehicles and emerging technologies team. So I thought about this for a second. I really had no idea if I would have a connection to it, but I applied, I got the job, and Carl ensured that I would be able to sort of build something from scratch. And I was so excited at this part in my life to be able to challenge my brain. And I will say in the first 2 years, I felt like I was getting my master's, in energy distribution and emerging tech. And I've learned so much, and it's just been a wonderful, rewarding experience. And to be able to do some things to break down barriers, to really help lift people up, break that cycle of poverty through education, through outreach, just having wonderful interactions with the community and having those doors opened from the nonprofit community. It was a great move on Carl's part, because we were really able to accelerate this program. We're doing some amazing stuff with education. We're doing incredible stuff around first and last mile solutions with our housing authority here in Austin. We're working with affordable housing, and we're giving people a shot now at lifting up their lives, at changing their daily transportation needs, who maybe never would have had that opportunity. We're bringing in people to have their voices to be heard and how we design our programs. So it really was kind of a strange way to come about it, but I'm loving it, and it's very fulfilling.
Yeah, and that's also such important work. I mean, the people that get impacted the most by energy prices and energy inefficiencies are the people that can oftentimes afford it the least. So it's great that we've got people like you, Amy, out there doing that. I was also a communications major, Sadie. Shocking for some people to hear that. And I also kind of fell into energy. I answered an ad for a public relations person, and I also got a crash course in not just energy, but retail energy. Super sexy stuff. So we all kind of came into it this weird way. Let's just get on the line. Who was your female mentors? Who was your female leaders that you looked up to when you entered energy?
I told Bethany before this panel that I hate that question. The truth is I have not had one. And I think that's really telling. And I think that's part of why something like this panel is so important. I've never had a female boss in retail energy. I've never had really anyone senior to myself working in the space that I've known. And so, I think hopefully that's something that we can work on growing. I told Bethany I have a daughter who's 11, and when I started Bounce, she was not born. And when we sold to DE, she was a little girl, but she always knew that I worked and kind of what I did, but not really. And this time when we started this company, she's 11 years old and she understands what we're doing. So she was helping me pick out stuff for the office and drawing little drawings of what she thought our logo should be. And I just think it's really cool that she sees growing up something that we never did, which is that, your mom can start a business, your mom can run a business, even in a space like energy where there aren't many women doing that. So hopefully, when you guys have this panel 20 years from now, and my daughter's sitting up here,
I was going to say Caroline's hosting it.
She'll have some mentors to talk about.
What about you, Amy, going into it? And obviously, I mean, and let's use mentorship, I guess, more broadly, right? I mean, because I that was not a trick question. Liz and I have talked about this often. So, was there anybody that you kind of looked up to that sort of helped guide you or point you in the right direction with, where to go learn the things that you had to educate yourself on to do your new role?
Yeah, and I actually love this question, and I loved your answer. And I think if we go back to the data point that you made originally when you were introducing this panel, and you were talking about, if we look at the energy workforce right now, only 22% of that is populated by women. So no, I don't have a female mentor. I will say I've been surrounded by amazing women throughout my entire life, and there is one woman I want to kind of point out right now that's quite inspiring, and it's the GM of Austin Energy, Jackie Sargent. She's up for Thought Leader of the Year here at ETS. But I would say my mentor in my current role, and I'm not afraid to say this in this context because I think it's important, it's a man. And, I think that the strongest leaders are men that will and are not afraid to lift women up. And along my journey, I've had a lot of men help me, and I'm not going to deny that. And I would say again, back to Carl Popham, you guys might know Carl. He's been involved with ETS, I think, since its inception. He'll be doing some workshops and such. But he really had that vision, and he took a risk on me. And I was able to, come in and, like I said, build this program from scratch. But also, he is a resource for me in understanding what it is that I do need to learn and where do I need to focus. And you kind of do need to have those people in your life and have that open dialogue in order to grow. And as far as a team leader, Carl has invested in every one of our team members. We're a small team. There's about 10 of us. There's 3 women currently, including myself. But he has been very selective with who he chooses, and he chooses people based on their talents so that they can come into the role and they can be authentic with the work that they're doing. There's things that I will never do, that I have no interest in doing, and I'm not expected to do that because I'm not going to shine doing that. But that is leadership, and that was mentorship, and I've learned a lot from Carl.
Yeah, and you brought up a very good point. In my career, I've also had some wonderful male mentors and leaders as well. And I, not discounting the importance of all mentorship and all leadership, just, there is a lack of female mentorship and leadership, specifically in the energy space, which I think is directly reflective of how many women are entering it. So Sadie, same question to you, but with a little twist, because I think that especially with what you're doing with Energy Bees, you are a mentor to a lot of people. So how do you take that on? How does that responsibility sit on your shoulders? How do you see that, kind of manifesting with the people that you're working with?
Energy Bees actually started out because I did not have any female mentorship. I've had I've reported to female bosses, and they've been very helpful, but most of my mentors who really helped lifted me up and moved me along were men. And I've even had men come to my rescue, I guess, and behind my back to some of my female bosses who were, we're all in leadership roles. We're all managing very large teams, organizations statewide. However, I was always given the administrative roles. Like, if there was, hey, y'all, your budgets are due and, end of the week, Sadie, can you gather those? It's like, can we spread that around a little bit? And my fellow teammates at the same level went to my female boss and said, hey, just because she's a female doesn't mean we can't do administrative stuff too for the team. And I didn't even think about it because I just take on new things, right? I'm just doing my job, and I was a fairly new director at the time. And it really came to a head when I had my son. He's 6 now, but at 10 months old, that's when I quit and started Energy Bees. And I just, coming off of maternity leave, family leave, right? And coming back into that role and the added stress, and none of my mentors, male mentors, could offer me any advice. Like, they had kids themselves, they had wives, and they're wonderful people, but they did not understand what it was like coming to the office and, pumping between meetings or during meetings and hearing the churn and getting asked those questions and, 2 hours of sleep and coming and making multi-million-dollar decisions. Like, what? I don't even remember, if I brushed my teeth this morning. So I said, if I'm going to work this hard and this long of hours, and I want a bigger piece of the pie, I know I can do it. And all of my male counterparts were like, you can do it. You can go do this. And I said, oh, I can? Okay, let's do it. So I had a lot of support from there, but I decided I wanted to go do it on my own and be that example for my son.
So this question was further down on my list of questions, but it seems relevant. I'm going to go ahead and bring it up. How badly do you hate being asked, how do you balance your career or company with your family, when literally nobody ever asks men that same question? And then my follow-up question is, no, seriously, how do you do it? So Liz, we'll start with you. How hard is it to balance everything and stay sane and still have time to get self-care in and maybe a glass of wine with your friends?
I think I don't know. This is a hard question because I don't think there really ever is balance. I kind of view things more as like seasons. I think there's times in your life where your family has to take priority. There's times in your life where you're, starting a new business and that's going to take up a greater percentage of your time. There's times in your life where you can really focus on community and giving back, and there's times where you may not have space for that. I have 3 kiddos, including my oldest, who has a lot of really involved special needs. And so there's been twice in my career where I quit working for a year at a time to be able to care for him and be with him when he was having some, surgeries or different things going on. So I don't think you really can balance it all. I think the trap that you get into mentally is not giving yourself enough grace to know that you're not ever going to be perfect at all of those things at the same time, and that you really have to almost juggle more than balance, and prioritize at the time kind of what needs you the most. It's kind of how I think about it.
Amy, same question down to you. Balance.
Yeah,
how do you find
yeah.
it? What helps you balance? Are there people in your life that help you balance? Or are there men that you work with that help you achieve balance?
Yeah, absolutely, and there is a lot going on. I do have a wonderful husband, and he's been a great support to me, and I am a great support to him, and we do have a partnership. We've got 2 teens, and I was telling the other panelist here that I'm in a new, talk about seasons, I have 2 teens, and it's a new season, absolutely. But yeah, and I have other interests as well. You know, I'm trying to do a lot of innovation with this role. I'm out there. It's very important to me. I'm very passionate about it. I'm doing other things. I'm also a professional singer-songwriter. I have a record coming out in a couple of months, and I have to put a lot of time into that, as well as raising these girls. So there's not a lot of time. So I think, you know, for me, the key of balance is just keeping that perspective of ensuring that I'm doing what I love and love what I'm doing. And that really gives me the strength to do it. But it's hard, and I won't deny that it's not. And I think that in our modern world right now, we're kind of expected to do it all. And, you know, we just draw on our best resources and just do the best we can.
You know, that's a really good point, too. And the one thing I was thinking of while you were talking, too, is sometimes the best thing to do is just ask for help. I think that sometimes as women, we're so afraid that if we ask for help, we're going to be seen as not competent enough or not strong enough, or, you know, but sometimes it's okay to say to any of your coworkers or leaders or friends or people, like, I need help with this thing. It doesn't mean that you can't do it. It means that you want to do it the best of your ability, and sometimes that needs an extra hand. But Sadie, same question down to you, the balance question.
Well, I had to laugh a little bit when I read that question, when you had kind of sent them out earlier. I was like, wait, for being a feminist, sometimes I'm a little naive. I was like, wait, men don't get asked this question?
Not really.
Wait, what?
Have any of the guys here had that question asked to them ever? Raise your hands, no?
Oh,
you know?
like, yeah, that's a daily question. That is a like daily question.
Fault, fellas.
No,
I mean,
I just
just
it never
something we
occurred
get
to
a
me. Yeah, so I also have an awesome husband. He is a middle school teacher, so his schedule is a little bit different. He has summers off, and when our son was first born, he was working just part-time, so that really helped me out. And when he went full-time, I was like, I can't keep this up. So I balance it I started working from home in 2017 before the pandemic happened, right? That was like my new norm, and it was amazing because I didn't have to suit up and put on the makeup and do all of that starting at 4 a.m. I could now get up at like 7 and put a load of laundry in and then go to my 9 o'clock meetings. And you know what I mean? It was a much better balance. And I also didn't get home at 7. I could be home right at 4 or 5 o'clock and spend more time with my 1-year-old. So that's how I chose to balance it, and it really has helped me out from that perspective. But I really was shocked that men don't get asked that question.
Well, honestly, I think the pandemic has sort of been like the great leveler, if you will, because I think a lot of women now are working from home and do have. I found that working from home makes it easier to balance just because you are home. You can throw in a load of laundry in between meetings. And gentlemen, if you're working from home, you too could throw in a load of laundry in between meetings. It's everybody could do it. I've taught my 11-year-old son how to do it. So yeah.
I have one other thought too. So at Bounce, we were a team of 7 founders. 3 of us were women. In this business, we're a team of 4 founders. 2 are women. And I think one great thing about having that is that we get it. So at Bounce, we were all kind of first having our first kids, and so we literally almost had a revolving door of like, okay, I'm on maternity leave, you got my thing, and then it's you're on maternity leave, and I've got your thing. And now we all have kids that are older, but literally in the morning we have a text chain, and we're like, okay, today I have art car parade at 2 o'clock, so I'm going to be leaving from 1 to 5, and we all get it because we're all doing the same things. And so I think having women around you that are in that same space is super helpful.
Thank you, Liz. That's actually very true as well. Do you ever have to call on each other to help with each other's kids? Like, listen, if you want me to do this, I need you to pick up the kids for me.
We literally will be sitting, we're in a small office and we're a small team, so we're chit-chatting about what have you, and the next day my kid has soccer cleats because Catherine's kid just finished with hers, and I mean, it's very communal. So yes, for sure.
Well, and I think something I want to add to this, because I think it's super important, and you're really hinting at it, and it's really, for women, important to embrace sisterhood, and that's really what you're talking about. And it's professionally and personally, and it's really been something that's been a lifesaver for me, and really something that I teach my girls as well. It's so important to have that sisterhood, and women can be competitive, absolutely. So it's really, like I said, I just think it's an important thing to highlight, because you have sort of that power when you're there and you have each other's backs.
Thank you, Amy. That was a wonderful follow-up point. let's talk about some obstacles that maybe you didn't know you were going to face. And this doesn't even have to be like a gender-specific obstacle, just in building your businesses and building your new role and building your startups. You know, whether they be specific to being a woman or just something you didn't realize you were going to run up against. What's like an obstacle that sort of stopped you in your tracks and you really had to work hard to figure out kind of a way around it? And Liz, I'll start with you and just go down the line. Okay, Amy, I will start with you.
Yeah, and I will frame it with male and female, just because I think, you know, when we get started in our career and as we go, you know, we're starting to look at compensation and gender parity within compensation. It's just not there yet. So the World Economic Forum just announced it's stating that it's going to take a century until we get to that leveling of parity. That's really daunting. So, I mean, really? So, are y'all okay with that? Because I'm not okay with that. And that's something I didn't expect. And I will say, throughout my career, I've had amazing people I've worked with and incredible bosses, but every single raise, for the most part, like substantial raise or any, you know, working up the ladder a little bit, has been everything that I've done. I have one in particular experience where it was really long overdue, and I had to go and specifically ask for a raise, ask for the amount, and ask for a title change. And when I did this, the man who was one of my father figures, he was like, wow, he said, you know what, yeah, you deserve that, and I'm sorry that I didn't do this for you before. So, I mean, you just have to be able to be okay with asking, you know, ask for it. You deserve it, and you know it. But nobody is going to do it for you. And I have learned that. And that was an obstacle that, you know, I just learned along the way.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this on our panel prep call too. When I would hire in communications, obviously very female forward industry, I've hired a lot of younger women, and one of the pieces of advice I've always given them is never be afraid to toot your own horn. Like, just drive around like beep, beep, beep. I mean, you're not, it's really important that you are confident and comfortable in owning your expertise and then being able to communicate that to other people. And that's really hard. I mean, it's hard for some women that have been in the industry for years. It's really hard for people just coming into it. So just
I think the biggest thing I have to add to that is take credit for your work.
Yeah.
I have 2 comments. Okay. So from a challenging perspective of starting a small woman-owned business, we are a certified WBE, and in our industry there is, you know, a push to for large prime contractors going out working with utilities to, you know, get extra points on that RFP for partnering with a WBE or minority-owned business, veteran-owned business. And, you know, that's part of our business model is to subcontract. We are little, we're not huge, but we provide niche services that bring a lot of value to these prime contractors' portfolios of business. And we're happy to do that. There's a couple challenges with that. A lot of times you'll get written into the proposal. You put a lot of work into it too, and you don't necessarily, depending on who your partner is, don't have a seat at the table to go help with those follow-up interviews with the end client, or be able to sell your services direct to the end client as well as, you know, you can sell them the best, right? And you'll get written out of the final scope of work, even though the bid was won, because you were deemed too expensive, or, you know, you just didn't get a seat at the table. It happens more often than you'd like to think, even though you have gone through the process of helping them win that bid. And that's unfortunate. It doesn't happen all the time, but it happens a lot. The second thing is, you know, when talking about hiring, one of the things that we teach through our Green Jobs program is we help 16-8-year-old high school students, this is through the nonprofit, create their resumes, LinkedIn profiles, and also some interview skills. And the first thing I tell young women and young men is negotiate, always ask for more. You can always ask for more. What are they gonna say? No? Okay, I'll take the job anyway. You know, like, you get to choose. And so I, you know, that was something that opened my eyes up when I started hiring people, the difference between the way that men and women would accept job positions. Men seemed to always negotiate. Like, they always asked for more. They asked for full moving costs. They asked for all these things, and women did not. And I'm like, why are you not asking for this? You should be asking for the moving costs and everything. They always got it. Like, we would give it away. Like, yes, but if you don't ask, you're not going to get it. So self-promotion and negotiate.
And another thing too, this is sort of almost like a side note, but I think the transparency in income is so important. I feel like, it's still like such a taboo to talk about how much you make, and and I think that if people, and this is just a me thing, if people were more transparent about what people's salaries were, I think that maybe it wouldn't take 100 years. Maybe I don't know. I would like to think not.
We also, through the Green Jobs program, bring in industry experts and always ask them to give a range based on experience of how much that job is worth, because I also agree, unless you don't hear it talked about, I didn't come from a family that was in kind of the corporate world, and so I never knew what to expect or what questions to ask. I kind of learned along the way, and unless you're exposed to that, you have no idea what those ranges could be. You might even think they're way higher than they are.
Well, especially when you're just starting out. I mean, my first job, I was like, $19,000. Oh my God! And now I'm like, what? Right, exactly. Oh, it didn't go far. Trust me. So, Liz, did we think about an obstacle, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a ton of obstacles. Like,
just pick one.
Yeah, but I think in hearing you guys talk, I would echo some of the same sentiments. So I've been super fortunate that my business partner, who's a male, has always, we've always been complete equals. And so I've never felt that feeling of, we're not making the same money or we don't have the same equity stake in the business. But where I do run up against that a lot is he hates doing deals. So when you're trying to raise capital, when you're trying to raise a down round, when you're trying to sell your business eventually, those were always my conversations to have. And walking into that room with him, and then everyone's eyes on him, waiting for him to start talking. And I pull up the PowerPoint and start talking, and you almost feel like they're disappointed, or like, why is she here? Or those are tough conversations to have. And I think when you're negotiating the sale of a business that you've spent 5 years building for $50 million, there's no scenario right now where you're actually taken super seriously in those conversations. It's just the truth. So again, I think things like that will change over time, but there aren't women sitting across that table from you. And so I think, similar to what you guys are saying.
But just think now, the people that you were in the room with, they've seen you do it. So now the next time a woman goes in to do it, they might be like, aha.
They're like, is she just the PowerPoint girl? Like, what is she doing here? Is she just going to click the slides? No.
Did they ask you to get them coffee?
Plenty of times.
Yeah, that's definitely happened. So let's move on to energy just for a second, because I know we've talked a little bit about how there is a lack of some sort of female leadership to look up to, but hopefully this is all changing. This conversation right here is the start. You were here for it, all of you. That was a joke. Liz, is there somebody that you look up to that isn't necessarily in energy, but like somebody that you admire, that you emulate, that you'd like to embody more of in your day-to-day?
100%. So I'm super involved with a group of women in Houston called Steel Magnolia Moms. We have 1,000 members, and we have a core group that runs our board, all special needs mamas. And I'll tell you this, no one can get stuff done like these women. And I think being in a group that exists solely to support women and to empower women, particularly women that have a completely different life than all the other women around them, those are my role models. They are the most amazing people. Most of them don't even work in the professional world, but what they're doing is so life-changing. And I think we don't have enough of, it's a true sisterhood, like you're saying, and I think we don't have enough of those types of groups.
Thank you, Liz. Amy, same question down to you. Somebody in your life, or maybe that you don't know personally, but that you really, really look up to a lot.
Yeah, there's so many powerful women, and I've been really absolutely blessed to have gotten to work for a lot of them throughout my career. So I've had a lot of women who have taught me about work ethic, including my mother. And I would say she's my role model. She came from very poor, humble beginnings, was raised on a farm out in West Texas. She was the first to go to college from her family and put herself through college. She went immediately into teaching. She was a teacher for 25 years, and I've had some amazing teachers that to this day have inspired me because they said to me that they believed in me. And that's what my mother did for me. She did some other things too that I have looked at a lot in my career because I have a lot of eclectic and different interests, a little bit of a Renaissance life that I live, and my mother did too. Later on in her career, she left teaching and she went into, she became a food stylist. She started doing a little part-time because she was great at it, and she became so busy with it that she left education. And from then she went into fashion styling. And she created this beautiful career. She worked for major publications across the country. And the thing that was a common thread for her was she was a mentor for young people. When she was a teacher, she was the woman, the teacher, that was the mother figure for all these students, especially kids who were at risk and who were struggling. And when my mom passed, I had some of those students, now adults, reach out and say, "Thank God for your mom, because I wouldn't have made it through high school." And so she also had that in the fashion industry as well. It's a very young environment, and she loved running with those kiddos and became their mother figure too. So, Mom said to me, a couple of things that I will always remember. One is never forget where you came from. And she definitely didn't. She also said, freedom is education. Always be learning. And that has been an amazing thing that I've thought about so much in my life. So I would say there's so many role models out there, but I would say it has to go back essentially to my mom.
Well, and it seems like that might have been where you got your artistic and creative genes from too. So don't think you're getting out of here without telling us where we could find your new album when it's coming out. So, Sadie, what about you? Who are your role models? The big people that you look up to?
I have two. One is my mom. So she barely made it through high school, and she had a retail career working at Ben Bridge Jeweler, retail business. But she took that, and at the age of 50, she started her own quilting retreat center, and she ended up building it up. And when she was 62, she sold it for quite a large amount of money. And she built that from the ground up, which you would not think. Quilting is $1 billion business. So I actually was inspired to start my own business because she did it. I'm like, oh, she can do it, I can do it, right? And she's pretty amazing and has been very supportive. The second woman in my life is actually my aunt, her sister. Didn't graduate college. She started to go to college, kind of a hippie free spirit, really very intelligent, very smart, soft-spoken. But she actually was one of the first line people at Seattle City Light in the 80s. So forging the way, being a line person, working on lines. She also went on to she became a substation wireman. And she was known for actually going down and into some, she was into mountaineering. This is Seattle. She lived in Alaska for a long time. But mountaineering, and all of the crews were scared to rappel down the dam to go do some work. And she's like, I'll do it. I mean, if you saw her walking on the street, you would never, ever think that this is what she would be doing. Yeah, and it is weird that I never thought to enter energy, but looking back, I'm like, duh, right?
You literally had energy and entrepreneurship in your veins, from a very young age.
I should also mention she went through quite a large lawsuit, a sexual harassment lawsuit, during that same time in the late 80s. I was pretty young, but I kind of remember that turmoil. And I mean, this is kind of crazy, but she really just wanted it to be known that this was happening. Didn't take a big buyout or anything. She just really wanted to know. And she actually got some counseling from it, on how, and she stayed working there, which is even crazier.
80s were wild.
80s were wild. I'm like, yeah. So she was a fighter and retired from there. And she actually did some line work in Alaska too, which is a crazy place to do line work if you've ever been there.
So it's funny because you kept saying line people, and Z Prime actually just did a documentary with a line person from ComEd, and I inadvertently said lineman in one of my emails, and I was corrected so quickly. But it's just when you hear a word so many times over and over again in your head, it takes a while to sort of change the pronouns at the end. We're going to end with one more question for each of our panelists, and then we're going to open it up to questions from you, our esteemed audience. Thank you all for coming. And I do hope that you're excited for the rest of the agenda, because it is fantastic. You guys are in for such a treat. But first, this treat, our final question here. What advice would you give to a young woman starting out in energy today? Yeah, you're sitting right next to me, yes.
Okay. I mean, I think we've hit on this quite a bit, but I think, growing up, I didn't know any woman really. I mean, my mom was really the only woman I knew who worked, and she was also a teacher for 35 years. And but I didn't know any friend of mine who had a mom that was a doctor or a lawyer or did business, or, I mean, it really just wasn't something that was part of our reality. Obviously, a lot of things have changed since then, but I mean, I think, sitting across the table from, our new entry-level analyst types that we're interviewing, just really that you can do it. I mean, if you can think of it, if you want it, if you work hard enough, if you work in the closet with no windows for 7 years, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, it's not easy, but nothing worth it is. And so I think, really I would say just that, don't be limited by what you've seen before. And if you're passionate about it, it'll work out.
Yeah, I would say, the future is bright. Make sure that, you are strategic and thoughtful about who you're working with and who you're working for. Make sure that you feel valued. It's okay to feel valued. You should have that right. Make sure that your voice is heard. I would also say that it's an exciting time to be in energy right now in technology. There is so much opportunity for women, as you heard from the data that we've talked about up here. And I would say be true to yourself. I know that might sound a little bit cliche, but I feel that pushing yourself to do something where you don't feel is true and authentic for you, it's not going to be success. I would also say that there are no shortcuts to success. Be patient, be in for the long term. And I would just say, follow your heart and go for it.
Ooh, I got lots of advice. I would say always negotiate. Always negotiate, always self-promote in a way that you take credit for the work that you're doing. Give credit to those that are doing work. That's very important. I would also say that we need to continue to lift each other up. And kind of around that sisterhood is there is plenty of room for all of us at the top. We can do it, and on teams. So it's not a matter of there's one position for, all these women that we can make it. We can all be there at the top, and our perspective is needed. So do not be afraid to speak up in those rooms full where you might be the minority. Don't apologize for questions that you may have. Just ask them because they're worthwhile.
My advice would be, I took on a project a while ago when I was at Direct Energy with a mobile exhibit, and I had no idea. They asked me if I would build a mobile exhibit, and I said sure, and I did not know anything about mobile exhibits. Yeah, it's a big 18-wheeler that we packed full. We built it into basically a rolling connected home that showed off all of our innovative products and services. And then not only did we build the mobile exhibit, but then I had to plan a North American tour, including Canada. And when they asked me to do it, I was like, sure, how hard could it be? Turns out, very hard, but I did it. And I would say, you don't always have to know exactly what you're doing. Unless, of course, it's like brain surgery or something, in which case, don't do that. But yeah, in terms of taking on new projects and new challenges, you don't have to know how to do it. You just have to believe that you could figure it out. So that's my little bit of advice. Also, is my lipstick all smeared? I looked down and saw my microphone. I was like, dear God. Sorry. Thanks. Well, thank you, Liz, Amy, and Sadie. We're going to open it up now for any questions from our audience here. We'll be very informal. Yes, sir, you with the hand up.
My name is Jonas. Nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you, Jonas.
Just a question. One thing that Amy said about sisterhood or creating sisterhood, I could relate to from my wife's experience. She's also in a corporate career, and she had a shared, I think, at least twice a situation where a female coworker got her into a bad position at work, right? And I could see from speaking with my wife about it how kind of that dynamic evolved. And so my question is, I think it's a great comment, right, to create that or try to create that sisterhood among women to help each other. But how do you create that in a competitive situation, right?
Yeah, and I will say, one of the things, I don't know if you remember, but I did say women are competitive. And my goal here was really to talk about inspiring women to let other women in, because I think there needs to be more of it. And when I've experienced the sisterhood, it's just very powerful and it is empowering. And, like something you were talking about spreading on that love, so to speak, lift others up. So I think, it really is sort of a mentality. And I think that just where I am in my life right now, that's what I think about. My goal today, my goal with my work, with my music, my goal in my job is about human connection. There's nothing more important. I have lost family members in my life, and I know that on your deathbed, you're not going to be worrying about that competitive edge that you're going to have. You're going to be worrying about the human connections that you made, and that's really what this is all about.
I'd like to add to that. I think you have to go back to the statistics as well about women leadership roles in our industry. What is it, like 13%?
13.9, yeah.
Yeah, so if we started seeing a shift where that's 50% of the leadership is women, you may not see such a clawing each other and pushing each other down because there's like one spot that multiple women are coming up. It's not that women women are working, we're out there, but we're not in leadership roles. And if there's only one role to be had and you're fighting against 5 other women to get it, I think that's one of the major issues. And it's the stats, right? We need to lift each other up, but we also need to create more space for women at the top so that there's more avenues to go.
I think too, we've kind of talked around it, but I don't think you can underestimate at all the importance of the people you work with. In terms of not just quality of life day to day, but ultimately how successful you are. I think teams that work well together statistically create the most successful businesses. Unicorns are all teams that have worked together. So going back to, I've worked with my business partner since 1994 at Outback Steakhouse. And we have a team of men and women who work together like brothers and sisters in the best and worst possible ways that means. But if you're in a space where you're feeling like everything around you is negative or competitive, find a different space. Yeah. Create your own thing. Go somewhere else that's better. And don't spend your time in a place that's negative or not something that's going to lift you up.
I could not agree with that more. I didn't see it. That's why I went out and created it.
That was a great question, Joan. Thank you so much. Any other questions from our, yes, lady up front? Teresa?
So I'm in a leadership role now that I'm sort of like on the last half of my career, probably the last quarter of my career, to be honest. But I do find that my history, I have to push up against it a lot to not do just suck it up, we all went through it, and actually like make that mind shift of I'm not going to haze the people coming up behind me, and that's men and women. So my question for anybody on the panel is, what was one of those moments where you had to sort of step back and say, it's not a suck it up moment, I actually have to change the path for this person?
That's a great question. And as soon as I figure it out, no, it is true. I think that you're right. We want people to go through what we've gone through, right? Like it's like this human need that we have within us, and we do kind of have to make a deliberate effort to sort of break that and to be a little bit more sympathetic and to lift people up. Any of one of the panelists could take a crack at answering that for Teresa.
I have a comment of a recent experience I had at another conference earlier this year, and it was a DEI and energy efficiency programs, and it was a full women panel, and I was like, whoa, look at all the women in the audience, and like all these young people, young women, young men, and still the same crowd too, a bunch of old people too, like us and like me, and afterwards, like a lot of the young women were like, I felt like it was rushing the stage. This is all in my head, right? There was like 2 that came to the stage, and they were like, "Hey, oh my gosh, this is so great. We really need more diversity and more opportunities in our industry." And I'm like, what? Look at the change that's happened. But then I had to take a pause and go, nope, we're just getting started. I need to be reminded that this is like the start of it again. And we need to open up that space for them. I'm not in a position to hire a bunch of people right now, but if I could, I would make a diligent effort to get a good balance of genders and diversity in my organization broadly. And I'm going to try to work that balance. That's the best I can do.
And on a more serious note, when I did start at Direct Energy, I didn't know anything about retail energy, and I had to go educate myself on it, which is not an easy topic to learn about. So when I did hire people under me, I made sure that I had training for them, and that I didn't want them to have to go through the same uphill educational battle that I did to master our industry. So so that is one thing that I did learn from, that I wanted to do better for the people coming after me. So.
I've also been literally told to suck it up by some of my, literally, you just need to suck it up.
Yeah. Very much worse, but yeah.
Well, and I would say just by the way that you asked the question, you almost answered yourself. It's like lead by example. You're already doing it.
Thank you for your question. Any other questions from our panel audience for today? All right. Well, again, I thank you guys. I think that event people also need more diversity, because I'm already anxious about how I'm going to get off the stage. We need like a step or something right here. But thank you guys for attending the panel. I really honestly do hope you're excited for the next couple of days, because there's some great stuff coming up. I'll be here for all 4 days, so I hope to meet and talk to each of you at some point during those 4 days. And thank you guys very much. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Sadie. I appreciate your time and your expertise and your energy. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Thank you.